Bitcoin has become so popular and newsworthy in such a short period of time. Every government around the world is talking about it. New businesses are forming, and some people are watching their assets appreciate. Others are getting conned. Some governments are capitalizing on this appreciation and will ramp up their efforts. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to have our focus on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Let's begin. First, we will look at the price action. You can see that the market cap has reached a total of $330 billion. Bitcoin alone is $185 billion, and the price is 11,000. In the last year, this has come a long way, that's for sure. You see, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and others have also appreciated dramatically in recent times. Dash and Monero are two currencies that promise to be more anonymous than Bitcoin. And they do so, you don't have to give up any information. The transactions are supposedly anonymous. I'm not an expert at the technology here. I'm just trying to bring you what these are, give some information. And then there's EOS, which according to some analysts out there has the most potential gains in the future. It's supposed to be the next big thing, right? That's what they say anyway. You can see that the price in just a very short period of time has gone from 50 cents to $4. So if you already have profited from this, then of course there is some reason to be happy, that's for sure. That's the prices. I don't have an opinion on any of this. I'm just bringing it to you as information. This is big news. Bitcoin exchange Coinbase ordered to hand over customer data to the IRS. Everybody was waiting for this to happen, and it finally has. And a lot of people are bewildered and they're shocked, but you shouldn't have been. This was inevitable. So a federal court has ordered Coinbase to hand over information to the IRS for more than 14,000 customers of what? Evading taxes. So first they said Bitcoin was bad, it's only used for illegal activities and all this silliness. And then they say, oh, but it's an asset now because it's appreciated in price, therefore you have to pay us your extortion. The extortion that the government does to individuals every single day in taxes, left, right, and center. You want to drive a car, you got to pay taxes. You want to buy a home, you got to pay taxes. You want to hold something that's called Bitcoin, which the government doesn't recognize, then it appreciates, oh, okay, you got to pay taxes on it. Very two-faced, as far as I'm concerned. Now they have to give up their name, birthday, address, taxpayer numbers, and apparently only affecting those of $20,000 or more in their accounts between the years of 2013 and 2015. So they're going back in time. If you already sold it 4 years ago, you still are on the hook. And they have 6 million account holders at Coinbase, and they're saying it's only going to affect about 1% of the top of the top. So here's the problem, and I'll tell you the solution. There's a lot of people out there, they were told by somebody that what they need to do is buy Bitcoin. And so they bought some Bitcoin using Coinbase. Coinbase is very easy to do. And so they gave up their information. Most likely, they had to give up their name and address, that's for sure. A lot of people have to put in their license photos, a picture of their license. You have to give up your passport. The more identification you give up, the more they are willing to let you spend, basically, through their service. So a lot of people will do that, right? So they get a lot of money, they do it through Coinbase. It's so easy to use. There's an app for your iPad and iPhone and all this stuff. So it's very accessible to a lot of people, and you can see obviously 6 million people are using this service. You can do that from any website as well, from any browser, I should say. So this has allowed a lot of people to get in, but they didn't take the next step, and that is to protect their own Bitcoin. They leave it with Coinbase because it's so easy to use, to monitor, to transact using this service. Big mistake. big mistake, because now look at what's happening. The IRS has that information. It's too late. They've already given it up. Now, the solution to this is to hold your own private keys. And what that means is taking your Bitcoin offline. Now, Bitcoin doesn't exist anywhere. You need to be aware of that. Bitcoin doesn't really exist anywhere. It doesn't exist in one particular country. That's the difference between Bitcoin and Coinbase. Coinbase is a corporation that exists within the US. They have to follow the rules of the US government, or they'll be shut down, or they'll be sued, or whatever. So when you have Bitcoin, you have the choice of keeping it with Coinbase, or you can maintain your own private keys, and doing so can be in your own memory. If you could just remember your own number, it's literally nowhere else except in your head. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Then how can they ever take it away from you? How can they take your Bitcoin when it doesn't exist at any particular location, just in your mind? So perhaps you forgot what your number was if they ever ask. I'm not suggesting anybody do anything, I'm just letting you know. So one of the other ways that a lot of people have been talking about to basically to make it disappear is to take your Bitcoin, transfer it to something like Monero, which I told you was supposedly more anonymous. From that Monero, it essentially can be disappeared, because that transaction is sort of lost in the way it works, the technology. So from there, you can then transfer it to another account, maybe another Monero account. You can move that money around essentially and wash it clean. These are the strategies. I'm not an expert at this, but I wanted to bring that to you to give you a better frame of mind of what's happening with cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and everything else that I don't think a lot of people can wrap their head around it. I know there's a lot of people that are very opinionated. Let's just leave the opinion out and let's talk about the technology itself and what I think will happen in the future. Personally, I think that more governments are going to be taxing Bitcoin. And that's a problem for me, because I don't like what the governments do. They don't deserve a penny of it. Whether you think it's legitimate or not, I don't think they deserve a penny. Very quickly now through the rest of this. CFTC statement on self-certification of Bitcoin products by the CME and the CFE and Cantor Exchange. So there are now multiple exchanges that are going to be involved in these Bitcoin binary options. So we are looking at them trying to get in and open up into this Bitcoin market. Of course, they are going to be shorting it. They're going to make it worse, I believe. But this is something that is, let's say, expanding the exposure to Bitcoin, to cryptocurrencies, which is good, but I believe it will be used to short the market, to manipulate the market, and I don't think it's a good thing. I think this market should stay small. That's my opinion anyway. If you want it to be private, if you don't want it to be overtaken by any sort of big corporation, they don't want to be in. They don't want to be involved in that. If you ever read the Satoshi white paper, okay, this is like the founding document of Bitcoin, right? We don't know who Satoshi is. We don't know what it's all about. But the document itself is worth a read, at least the very first paragraph. If you don't want to read anything else, read the first paragraph, and you can just go to a search engine and type in something like Bitcoin Satoshi white paper. The first one that comes up would be bitcoin.org, and you can see it right there for yourself. What was the original document? Whether it was written by one group or another, I don't know. But he says it right there. To paraphrase, Bitcoin is to be used between one individual and another without the use of financial institutions. Right there, it's huge. It's so huge to even think about that concept, that you don't need to have Visa, MasterCard, your bank, or insurance companies or anything else in between you and I. I think that's good in the concept. I'm just saying in the concept. PwC, the consulting and Big Four accounting firm, announced Thursday that it accepted its first payment in Bitcoin. So you got to know PwC. If you don't, this is an auditing company. They are let's just say, not the most interesting individuals if they've ever been visited by PwC, but in the industry, in the financial industry, PwC is a big name. And they are out there very, cut and dry type of folk, okay? So what you'll see here is them embracing Bitcoin. I think that's very shocking to me personally, but essentially I think they're just going to be converting it, and it's just more of a show. I don't know what's to come of this. I don't think it makes much sense for them to do so, and maybe I'm missing something here, but we'll see what happens. I just see that more companies are starting to adopt it. Now, this is one of the pitfalls of cryptocurrencies, is the ICOs. A lot of people don't know what they're getting into. They think, I need to get into the next Bitcoin. That's the same thing with, as I showed you before, EOS. It's supposed to be the next big thing, so a lot of money's rushing in. But what if it isn't? Well, you're going to lose that money. And these people here, they get into the ICO, and the ICO hasn't even taken off. There is no currency at this time. There is no product at this time. And a lot of people, $230 million worth is at stake. Tezos founders push for legal bailout from the Swiss Foundation. So apparently they're in trouble. This this particular cryptocurrency, it started out trying to be the best of the best. It raised the most in an ICO at that time. I think it's still to date, $230 million worth. And it's huge. That's huge for something that doesn't exist at this time. A lot of people just putting their money in. It's going to be a problem, I think, because if they run into a lawsuit, are they going to be able to pay back their investors, or are they simply just going to take the money? Or will there be any, let's say, any faith in them if it comes, it takes 2 or 3 years just to start developing something at the end of it all? Will there be any faith left in it? A lot of people invested in it hoping that it would be trading by now and they could return a profit from it. But what if it's not a year or 2 years? Now, all of that time, your money's been locked up. Be very careful with ICOs. When you do so, you're giving your money to them and you lose it. That's the difference between, investing in exchanges. I don't think that's a good idea. You don't want your money or cryptocurrencies on any exchange. You don't want your money to be with ICOs. That's my personal opinion. To have any more money, I should say, than you're willing to lose, because you're giving it to them. If you hold it in your own private hands, at least you have that sense of security there. It's definitely not foolproof. I'm sure there are always ways around it, but it's much better. Doing something like this is a big risk, and a lot of people are not aware of the risk. They're simply chasing the returns from what they saw with Bitcoin. They want to get in the next Bitcoin, right? Okay, more companies that are taking this on. With Bitcoin mania in full frenzy, Williamsburg property management platform ManageGo announced Thursday it will implement a rent payment option in Bitcoin, Ether, or LITECOIN through its app. So there are all of these companies coming out there and saying, hey, if this is taken off, people need places to spend their Bitcoin. Therefore, we will give them that option. And I'm sure behind the scenes, they take the Bitcoin and immediately convert it into fiat. Then look at this. The government doesn't recognize Bitcoin as legal. So this is the finance minister of India saying, this isn't legal. This is such good news. If you're a fan of Bitcoin, even if you're not, if you're just a fan of liberty, this is good. You don't want them to think that it's legal tender, that it's an asset or anything else. You want them to think it's a video game. You want them to think it's a joke. And that's important. That's the way I see it anyway. I don't want them to take it seriously, because that means they're looking into it. That means they're investigating. That means they're asking Coinbase to hand over the money. Right? Now, if you're playing a video game and you somehow, start that game and you have $0, and then later on in the video game you have $1 million, you don't have the government coming in and saying, well, your character appreciated in value $1 million, therefore you have to pay capital gains on that. No, it's not how it works. That's a game. Well, we want the government to think it's a game and have nothing at all to do with it. Don't look at it. Don't even pay attention to it, right? And so that it remains in the hands of individuals. Sure, there might be people behind it, and who knows. I just don't want the governments involved, at least in principle. That's the way I see it. Whatever I'm looking into, I don't want the government involved in it. That's the way I see it anyway. All right. Looking at this is actually the Central Bank of Canada directly from their website. Remember, on this channel, I always show you the actual document from that particular website. I don't show you this guy said this, but it's on that website, and it's actually a quote from another guy from another book, and then 10 levels deep, you don't even know who's saying it. Broken telephone. Okay, so what they said basically was that, look, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, they're all taking off. There's a lot of interest in it. So we thought maybe we'll see how it would be to have our own central bank digital currency. How would it work? We talked about it. And in the end, no, it's not a good idea. That's the way this works. That's their own document that you can read for yourself here. I thought it was pretty funny because, of course, they would say that their own systems of central banking are going to be much better. They don't want any sort of transparency. They don't want anyone to audit them or to be able to see what they're doing. They want to know that what they do hides in the shadows, all of their actions. That's the way central banking works. And unfortunately, central banking is what controls everything. They control all of the banks. They control essentially the entire financial system because of their ability to issue the only legal tender. So when you have something that competes against that, the governments get scared. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. If you want to flip through the books, links are in the description below. Take care.